Today, or tonight, we're going to leave Moses behind us for a little bit. Excuse me. Just had a hot bath. Okay, extra information. Anyhow, I get a couple of nice responses to a few things, and one of them was at the 6,000 Year War by a fellow that mentioned something that sparked my curiosity. So when that happens, of course, one thought leads to another, and that started bouncing around in my head. But before that, I think a few days before that, I'd also read another comment. I really like comments, by the way, so if anybody's got a comment, let it rip, even if you don't want to say something nice, but try to keep it sensible. And this was one of those kind of bordering on the vicious comments, but it was done from a believer's point of view. It was obvious to see she or he, I didn't check actually, trying to proclaim my wrongness about something because God said, or I don't got God, or God's not me, or God's not in me, and everything I'm saying is wrong because I'm saying it against the Bible. And I saw her point. I expect that. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking against the Bible because I'm trying to interpret it, and that's what we're not supposed to do. But I think that's, well, it's not the point right now because I'm going to get to some other things really quickly. Otherwise, it's going to take an hour to get this done. Anyway, it's to her or him, and this other fellow, I guess. It's always hard to tell on the internet, isn't it? It doesn't matter. What matters is... Okay, I'm going to get concentrated really soon. She called me Esau. Esau Karna. And I thought, well, that's a funny insult. I thought, well, that's probably one of the most beautiful things I've heard yet. So we'll get to Esau and Jacob in Genesis chapter 25. That starts at verse 21. Okay, Isaac was having trouble having a kid with Rebecca. Rebecca was a child from a woman who was from Mesopotamia, so she wasn't a pure Jew. So just a subtle reminder that this Jewish race thing is a bunch of nonsense anyway, even if it was true. Or, I mean, if we didn't have 13.7 billion years of history behind us. Anyway, that's not the argument or the place we're coming to. Verse 21 is, and his wife Rebecca conceived. 22, but the children struggled in her womb, and she said, if so, why do I exist? Now, if you're not used to reading the Bible, that's the sort of thing that someone like Rebecca would say, or someone would write it that she said so that the women of the world understand that their only reason to exist is to make babies for the men. And this, of course, is something that Jacob would tell you. I don't know if Esau would, and I think we'll get to that point really quickly. But first we'll say that the Lord, or God, whoever is speaking at this point, said that, I think it was the Lord, he said, you'll have two nations in your in your belly, and they shall be two separate peoples, with an S, peoples. I mean, there is no such thing as people with an S, because, well, I mean, different people, different peoples. Anyway, that's getting really, and yeah, what they said was the older one is going to serve the younger one, and it was obvious that the twin boys were not from the same egg. They didn't look alike. That was mentioned, or is mentioned enough. But they are born at the same time, and the red hairy one comes out, and they call him Esau because he's red and hairy. And I don't know how hairy he would have been at birth, but let's not worry about that. Maybe he had some red hair on his head. And Jacob was called Jacob because he was holding onto his heel. Now, of course, he wasn't literally holding onto his heel because his head would have to poke out first, because the arms don't get out before the head. This just doesn't happen. But, I mean, it's an analogy. He popped out right afterwards. It's probably what they meant. And anyway, in Hebrew, Akib sounds like Jacob, so there you go. Okay, wait, we'll get to verse 27 now. Well, I'm going to tell you something that you're probably going to think is absurd, but go with it anyway, okay? Don't try to believe things I say. try to think about them and try to relate it to what the world looks like. And this is the synopsis of the war. Okay? The war isn't between two brothers. The war is between two ideas. Okay? Esau became a skillful, this is verse 27, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors. But Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. And by mild, they mean he was a wuss. He was afraid of the wilderness. And he was afraid of the wild in man. He was afraid of the beast. And the beast was what we are, is what we are now, was what we were then, is what every creature is that isn't human. And their number is, of course, the biggest number. But Jacob didn't like the wild, and he wanted to make a big bloody shopping mall. Now this sounds over the top, but hang on. Esau has lost his birthright, not because he gave it to his brother. Okay, verse 29. Give me some of that red stuff, for I am famished. Okay, it's always the red stuff, a bit of a joke. Okay, but he's famished. Esau is famished. He comes in from hunting, and Jacob, his brother, says, verse 31, first sell me your birthright. Verse 32, I am at a point of death. Verse 33, swear to me first. Okay, Esau is at the point of starvation, and he's the kind of fellow that loves life. He loves to go out in the wilderness, and he loves to be in the wild, and he loves to take from the land and be part of the land. I mean, that's the whole story of the Esau point of view. He is Karna, Esau Karna. He wants to have the knowledge of the wilderness. I mean, there's medicines there. Before we started building the shopping malls, there was no such thing as pharmaceutical industries. There were different herbs that we put together for different ailments that we had, and we had so very few ailments because there weren't as many toxins in our life. Most of our ailments, most of our cancer comes from man-made chemicals, and that is a fact.